channels last night, and they were saying, listen, this is as close as we've gotten to finally getting to an answer in North Korea because the status quo is not acceptable. But I thought the second half of the president's tweet is so telling. That army is starving to death. There are reports that these guys are allowed to leave their post to go out and hunt for food. We know the handful of defectors that have come forward and gotten across the line have been not only malnourished, but riddled with bacteria.
Well, we saw what happened to Otto Warmbier when he was there. We saw that guy. Remember, I think he was an officer. He was trying to get across the line, and they were shooting at him, firing, and he got shot a few times, but he did make it over to South Korea. They are not allowed to escape. They're not even allowed to watch TV. They don't know what the rest of the world thinks of them because he is controlling everything.
He is, and in fact, on New Year's Day, he hinted that the sanctions that the United States and the world community have imposed on North Korea are actually taking a toll because what he said he said that the economy encountered, quote, unprecedented impediments in 2017. Now, if there is a silver lining, it could be the fact that apparently yesterday, North Korea picked up this phone that has been not used for the last year or so and talked to South Korea and said, hey, you know what? We'd like to talk to you about coming to the Winter Olympics. And they said, you know what? We'd like to talk to you. So that really is the rub because the United States cannot now take any sort of unilateral action against North Korea if they are in talks, even if they are about the Winter Olympics regarding
with South Korea.
Exactly.
So a tactical move for them, for the North.
That meeting is going to take place next Tuesday, and our president says, listen, our sanctions are working. Now he wants to work with South Korea because they're feeling it.
Right, but at the same time, you cannot look at what North Korea said to us about we can blow up the United States. That's a threat, and we've got to take that seriously.
Absolutely.
By the way, if North Korea wants to watch, that's one thing. But if they want to play, they're not allowed. They got to qualify, all right? Together, they have 9 skis. That's not going to qualify you for the Winter Olympics. Maybe 11. So I'm not really sure if that really gets you there. Plus, I'm not sure if North going to see South Korea, if they actually do participate. Senator Lindsey Graham weighed in yesterday. If North Korea goes, we're not going, in my view. Meanwhile, at 5 minutes after the top of the hour, fascinating developments in about 40 cities throughout Iran as we see some unrest happening. And what's the main difference between the 2009 uprising and the 2017? According to Iranian experts, this starts almost all young. This starts almost all rural. And believe it or not, it was the leak of a document that spurred this unrest, that showed the top secret budget proposed by their president, Rouhani, about how much of their money was going to terrorism, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. That got the population outraged, where most of the young under 25 are unemployed. 4 out of every 10 don't have a job.
Absolutely. Look, the sanctions against Iran are working as well. And you look at what is going on over there, and they don't like the president, even though they kind of like him, don't like him really, but they really hate the Ayatollah. Now, keep in mind, one of the things Sarah Huckabee Sanders said yesterday is the people of Iran must be given basic human rights. Also, Iran's got to stop being a state sponsor of terror. And there was a guest on by the name of Robert Bartlett, a retired staff sergeant. He was injured by an Iranian bomb. And what he depicts is, over the last number of years, how many people, United States citizens, have been injured by Iran. Watch this.
You know, when they got the blood of 500 Americans just in the last few years on their hands, you know, they've been killing Americans since the 1970s, and we just have, we just really haven't done a whole lot really about it. The billions of dollars and money to go over, that obviously is not going to the people, and you're seeing the protests now.
Yeah, I mean, thousands of Americans' blood on their hands. They support Hezbollah. They hate Israel. Our president is now saying he supports these protesters. And then in 2 weeks, he has the opportunity the sanctions were lifted in 2015 with the Iran nuclear deal. He has to, every 120 days, the president of the United States has to go back through and decide whether or not he wants to continue those sanctions to be lifted. So he has a major decision to make in the next few weeks.
So what they have to do is, and I'm sure the president, very few presidents presidents are better at this than our current president, working one-on-one with other leaders. Maybe Merkel and he still have some friction, but he can work with Theresa May, he can work with Macron, he can work with the Italian leader and get everybody on the same page to say, if the crackdown continues with 21 dead already, if the crackdown continues where you shut down social media, we're going to begin to put the creep sanctions back in, not just from the U.S., but from the European leaders. The president's got to work the phones to make that happen.
Well, let's see if they do, because they've taken down Instagram, they've taken down Telegram. The people who want to know what's going on don't know, but the United States has made it very clear. Fix it.
Well, all these Iranians, they just want freedom. They want freedom from this dictator, from this Ayatollah, from being, and some of these, I was reading one article, one woman stood up and was saying that this Ayatollah needs to be taken down, and she's risking her own life, she's risking her family's life to do this. So whoever started these protests, whoever started this movement, they're very brave.
That's one way in which when you have the burqa that covers your face, it works to your advantage.
Well, look, through social media and their smartphones, they've been able to take a look at what freedom looks like. It looks like this, what you're looking at right here. It doesn't look like what they've got over there, so let's see what happens. Meanwhile, yesterday we told you that as of January 1st, California became a sanctuary state. Jerry Brown, the Democrat governor out there, said, okay, I'm going to sign it. And you know what, going forward, what that means, of course, is state officials, law enforcement and whatnot will not cooperate with ICE when it comes to federal immigration issues. And also, you can't ask somebody who is detained in California, hey, are you in the country legally? Can't do that.
Right. It's unbelievable. You can play charades. You can give some hypotheticals. I'm amazed at this because Tom Homan was on. He's acting director of the Sanctuary Cities, actuary of ICE, and he was on with Neil Cavuto. And instead of him saying, okay, California, good luck, because now everyone's not going to go to Arizona or Texas or New Mexico. They're going to be going to you. Instead, he said, I'm going to be standing there with my men and women looking to stop the flow, but they're going to be coming. Listen.
The street cops, they do not like this legislation. They're totally against it. The street cops understand what we're trying to do. We want to take public safety threats out of the communities, and so this comes up. This is a political decision. Sonoma County didn't honor the detainer. What happened? 2 weeks later, he killed that girl. Now she has 2 young daughters without a mother. So the state of California better hang on tight. Another thing they need to do, they need to hold these politicians personally accountable. I mean, more citizens are going to die because of these policies, and these politicians can't make these decisions and be held unaccountable for people dying. I mean, we need to hold these politicians accountable for their actions.
He went on to say they're knowingly putting law enforcement at risk in that state, and they're putting politics in front of public safety.
I lived there for a while, and I will say this, the homeless situation that they have, where people are actually choosing to be homeless, who are like 21 to 28, I've never seen anything like it. Now they're basically in California saying illegals are more important than the citizens of California, and matter whatever city you're in, they are more important than you are, because that's where the money's going.
He hit it right on the money. He just said it was a political calculation, essentially, to do that. And he said the rank-and-file cops don't like it. What about the people who live in a sanctuary state? Do you think they like it?
What about Kate Steinle's family? That guy actually is going to be sentenced this week on Friday. So we'll continue to keep you posted.
All right, there he is right there. And there she is. All right, as you can see, a very busy Wednesday. Jillian has joined us here in Studio F.
It is busy. Good Wednesday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's get you caught up on some other headlines of the day. A massive procession overnight honoring a California deputy who died days after a violent attack on New Year's Eve. Dozens of fellow law enforcement lining up and saluting as his casket left the hospital. San Bernardino detectives say 70-year-old Larry Falsey was beaten unconscious by another driver after a car crash. He was off duty at the time. The suspect is in custody. Falsey served the department for 36 years. He was the oldest deputy on the force. An American hero killed in the line of duty in Afghanistan on New Year's Day. 4 other service members are hurt following a combat engagement in an area where the U.S. has been fighting ISIS and the Taliban. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker identifying the fallen soldier as Sergeant First Class Mihail Golin, pictured here in Afghanistan in 2009. He reportedly immigrated from Latvia 13 years ago and wanted to serve his new country immediately. He leaves behind a 6-year-old daughter. To extreme weather now, a monster winter storm taking shape down south right now with millions in its path. Fountains freezing over in Georgia and South Carolina, where temperatures are about 30 degrees below average. And this isn't something you see every day. Snow flurries falling in Florida. Yeah. Meantime, whiteout conditions causing this deadly pileup near Buffalo, New York.
Look at that. This is freaking bonkers.
You couldn't see a gosh darn thing in front of you. Everything was blurry. There was complete whiteout. Right now, you could even tell there's complete whiteout. I still can't feel my fingertips just from walking, not even a quarter, from my vehicle.
One person was killed, several others injured. And Janice Dean will keep us updated on the weather throughout the morning, guys.
Big storm heading this way.
You know that song, I Can't Feel My Face, when I'm with you? Yesterday I was walking, I could not feel my face. I was like, that's what the song is about.
It's a little cold.
Special dedicated to the wind.
All right, Jillian, thank you. Meanwhile, it's one of the promises that put President Trump in the White House.
We are going to drain the swamp.
And just now we're learning how deep that swamp is. We've got the hard numbers, and they're going to shock you coming up next.
And remember the professor who wanted a white genocide for Christmas? He's back.
When we win tomorrow, we are going to drain the swamp.
Well, that, one of the president's most notorious comments, but now exactly how deep is the swamp and how is it spending your taxpayer dime? Now, thanks to our next guest, you can find out. Open the Books founder, Andrew Andrzejewski, created a new tool breaking down the $136 billion federal payroll by zip code. All you got to do, Adam, is just know your zip code and you can figure out what?
Well, we want to invite everybody to play the game, Steve. At the Fox Opinion section right now, my editorial is published up there, and it links through to this widget where we literally map the swamp, the 2 million federal civil service employees by zip code. So everyone watching the program, you can click a pin, your zip code or any zip code across the country, and you can see your little piece of the swamp anywhere across America. And it's expensive. It's $1 million a minute. That's $500 million a day. And we found 30,000 federal employees that are in every governor of the 50 states.
Unbelievable. And there are federal employees, bureaucrats who are making more than members of Congress. There's at least one guy who's making more than the Vice President of the United States. Adam, we've got over here on the big wall, swamped by the numbers, 407,000 federal employees are making over $100,000 a year. And then you've got 30,000 federal employees make more than $190,000. And one more graphic as well, 165% increase in federal employees making $200,000 from 2010 through 2016. Now, here's my question to you, though. A lot of these bureaucrats and people who work for the government are specialized. They're lawyers. They should be adequately compensated, shouldn't they?
Well, and you're exactly right. So out of the top 25 bonuses last year, and the bonus bucket was expensive to taxpayers, it was $1.5 billion on the year. Wow. We found in the top 25 bonuses, 12 of them were general attorneys, they were scientists, they were doctors. But we did find other federal workers, like at the Presidio Trust in San Francisco, California, which is a small federal agency. The top bonus in the entire federal system last year went to a human resource manager. It was $141,000 at the Presidio Trust, the small land management agency. They're not the rocket scientists. Right. They're not the doctors. They had 3 out of the top 4 bonuses, a realtor for $80,000 and a program manager for $75,000.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is an eye-opener. Adam, thank you very much. Folks can go to our website, foxandfriends.com, look for your op-ed, and go ahead and play with the widget. Thank you very much for joining us today from Chicago.
Thanks for your interest in our work, Steve.
Interesting stuff. All right. We are in your home. An ISIS terrorist posting a chilling selfie with that message outside a major New York City tourist attraction. Look at that. There's the museum. And pot is legal in California. Does that mean it's not dangerous? Dr. Mark Siegel on the health risks to your health next. We are back now with some more quick headlines. More American workers will be cashing in thanks to President Trump's tax plan. Both American and Southwest Airlines will hand their employees $1,000 bonuses. The airline's benefiting immediately from the lower rate on corporate income taxes. So far, 26 corporations have pledged to give bonuses or increase wages in the wake of the tax overhaul. And from heavyweight champion to The Hangover? Well, guess what's coming for Mike Tyson? Pot rancher. The boxer turned actor now breaking ground on a 40-acre future Tyson ranch in California. The farm will include a marijuana cultivation school, supply store, and campgrounds. And speaking of pot, Ainsley.
Us into this next story. Thank you, Steve. California is the 8th and most populous state where recreational pot is now legal. But with more people likely getting high, what will the impact be on your health?
All right, let's ask Fox News A-Team's Dr. Mark Siegel is here. Dr. Siegel, we have, ever since Colorado passed it on their own, in spite of federal law, we've been trying to study what legalizing would do. What are you finding?
First finding, of course, Colorado, talk about them since 2013, recreational marijuana has been legal. Brian, yes, they've raised about $500 million doing that with taxes and fees, but here's the problem. Fatal car accidents involving pot has doubled over that period of time. So that doesn't mean that pot's the cause, but they're finding that people that die in car wrecks, twice as many as before, have some marijuana in their system.
I know, Dr. Siegel, San Francisco Police Department saying 1 in every 4 drivers, 1 in every 4 that they're pulling over is stoned. This was before it was even legalized.
And in a way, it's worse than alcohol, Ainsley, because it stays in your system for days and days, THC, so it impairs judgment. That's what you need with driving. You know, it impairs how you're thinking, where you perceive the next car being. It's got to increase car accidents. You
also talk about pregnancy. So far, you've signed it, and you know it leads to low birth weight. The fact that it's more accessible will make people do it more? Is that your...
No, I'm worried about morning sickness, Brian. Listen. And Ainsley knows this, when you're pregnant and you have morning sickness, it can be a really awful symptom. But I always tell my pregnant patients, don't take anything. You know, maybe some Mylanta, not marijuana. And there was a study out of Kaiser in California yet, where it's being legalized now, recreational, that already before recreational pot was legalized, already before 7% of pregnant women were using pot and 20% under the age of 24. You know what that leads to? It leads to children that have behavioral problems, that can't focus, that have memory problems, that don't do as well in school. It leads to low birth weight infants, preterm labor. This is very bad for pregnancy.
So they have that full medical marijuana where anyone could really walk in with a prescription and get it even before January 1st of this year when they legalized it.
And now there's no one monitoring it.
Yeah, what about brain health? When I was in high school, I remember people saying, if you do this, it's going to kill your brain cells. Is that a myth?
No, it actually does kill your brain cells, number one. It affects your heart and lungs, too. But in terms of that, that's the biggest problem. You do not perform as well on tests. You do not do as well in the workplace. It affects relationships. So long-term use, and we're talking about, you know, once a week. We're not talking about somebody that uses it once or twice. Regular use of pot definitely impacts relationships.
You've probably seen that. You've seen that in your patients.
I see it all the time. And I see it in the office all the time.
I think we all have. We all have someone in mind that, gosh, there were a lot of people in my high school I thought were so smart, and they would do that and then go down the wrong path.
And of course, they use it with other things like alcohol. There's a huge increase of alcohol use among people that are also using pot.
Right, and you talk about that being a gateway drug, and you also talk about poisoning.
Gateway drug, per Bishop Allen, who talked to you yesterday, completely agree that it's a gateway drug to other drugs. Poisonings, it actually increases among teens. Like Colorado, 3 times as many teens ended up in the emergency room. They don't die from it, but they end up with rapid heart rate, paranoia, anxiety.
You're against this. And overall, the other thing that it's not on the card, but is edibles. Because they're unregulated, you don't know what you're eating. It comes in different types of food stuff sometimes.
Brian, that's where the poisonings are coming from. People are eating candy. They have it in drinks. Wow, this looks great. There's no stop sign on there. You know, at least when you're smoking it, you know how much you're getting. You do not know how much you're getting when you're eating it. It leads to emergency room visits. It leads to all kinds of paranoia, psychosis, very bad stuff.
You mentioned the gateway drug because we had the bishop on, like you said, and if for folks who weren't watching, he was saying that he was addicted to drugs, and he would smoke marijuana and then he wouldn't get a high off of it. So he'd have to smoke another one and then another one. And he'd smoke 4 in one sitting, I think he said, something like that. And then that would lead to another drug that he wanted to try because you don't get high if you continue to do it.
Yeah, when I debated the bishop, he said it led to opioid use, and then he had to be shocked out of it by being in prison. Of course, I believe in a therapeutic approach to that, but I think we have to start with pot. I think we have to start with marijuana, and I think making it easier for our teens to get is a huge problem here. And I think it definitely, look, 3 times as many people that are using pot are also drinking alcohol. The combination medically of alcohol and marijuana on the system, it puts you at big risk of car accidents, of doing a lot of things you're going to regret.
Yeah, the counterpoint would be it's out there anyway. At least you'll be able to regulate it and get some tax dollars for it. We should really study now these 8 states and see if the federal government's going to actually start suing. Dr. Siegel, thanks so much.
It's a big problem for these states. You lose control medically. That's what I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Dr. Siegel, great to see you. All right, meanwhile, still ahead, Utah Senator Orrin Hatch says, I'm done. That's it. I'm finished. I'm through. So will Mitt Romney make a run for the Senate seat? The former presidential candidate just dropped a big hint. Former Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz, who knows Mitt Romney, fought for Mitt Romney, who will weigh in about Mitt Romney.
And I'll take getting a bad rap for 200, Alex.
There's Paradise Lost.
Yes. Our judges have reevaluated one of your responses a few moments ago, and we take 3,200 away from you.
The Jeopardy moment going viral this morning. We're going to show it to you.
But first, happy birthday to a guy that I watched grow up.
Oh.
He's 37 years old. Is he done as a New York Giant?
Oh.
That's what Eli Manning looks like.
We love you, Eli.
And he's celebrating just 3 wins this year.
Happy birthday.
When the president visited Utah last month, he said I was a fighter. I've always been a fighter. But every good fighter knows when to hang up the gloves. And for me, that time is soon approaching.
With that, Orrin Hatch has announced he will be hanging up the gloves at the end of his term. He's from Utah, and so is Fox News contributor and former Congressman Jason Chaffetz. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. Good morning.
So now, of course, everybody's looking at the tea leaves going, well, obviously now this means Mitt Romney, who yesterday changed his location on Facebook from Massachusetts to Utah, he's running.
I checked my magic 8 ball, and I think the answer is certainly yes. I don't know why. I think we need to ask Mitt Romney, and he needs to tell the voters of Utah why he wants to do this. But if he runs, he's one of the most beloved figures. He has a home in Holiday, Utah. He attended Brigham Young University. He saved Utah for the Olympics in 2002. He was the presidential nominee. He's going to win, and I think he'll be actually a really good senator. But the relationship with Donald Trump, that's going to be fun to watch.
Well, Governor Huntsman, now Ambassador Huntsman over in Russia, they have a little bit of a rivalry, we understand, in Utah. How would that be? Will there be Huntsman supporters that will push it back against Romney and try to find another?
Well, the state's largest newspaper, the Salt Lake Tribune, is owned by John Huntsman Jr.'s father. So that creates an interesting political dynamic. But the reality is the most beloved political figure in Utah is Mitt Romney, and he will be the next senator if he decides to run.
What's the real reason? Why is Orrin Hatch? Why is he stepping down?
Well, look, he was first elected in 1976.
42 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, he was elected in 1976. Utah and the country owes a lot to Orrin Hatch. He has laid it out there for 42 years, and, you know, he's in his 80s, and he's served the country well.
It sounds like when he says, I'm stepping down, a fighter knows when to get out of the ring, that maybe there was a problem, but there wasn't.
No, look, Orrin Hatch said in his last election he wasn't going to run again, and he's living up to that word.
The most important question for Republicans, if Mitt Romney gets elected, will he be like Ben Sasse, respected by the Republicans, but Ben Sasse does not like the president? Will Mitt Romney be that? Would he be the thorn in a Republican thorn that Jeff Flake is in the president's side?
I don't think Mitt Romney will ever make it personal. I think he wants a high level of discussion where he agrees with the president. He'll say as much and do as much. But I don't think he has a personal animus towards the president. Remember, he was inches away from becoming the Secretary of State. Right. And I actually think that was very real. I think that the president and Mitt Romney will get along on certain parts. But if Mitt Romney disagrees, he won't be back.
I wonder if maybe that was part of the conversation when they were sharing that dinner over at the restaurant in Columbus Circle. Maybe, hey, not going to be Secretary of State, but maybe you should run.
I don't know. Again, I think he needs to answer the question, why? Why is he? He'd be one of the oldest senators ever elected.
Interesting. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, today's going to be a big day because Devin Nunes has subpoenaed a bunch of records from the Department of Justice. We'll find out exactly how many of them show up and how many of them are blacked out. John Solomon has had some good reporting over at The Hill where they revealed yesterday that there's evidence, there's written evidence that apparently the FBI believed that laws were broken regarding the Hillary Clinton email scandal. And it looks like that IT guy covered things up, when he, even though they were subpoenaing the email records, he went and bleach bedded it or whatever he did to it to destroy the hard drive.
There was hammers, there was bleach bedding, and when you listen to James Comey back in July of 2016, you really thought that she was actually going to get indicted. But this is a closed case. So there's no reason why the Department of Justice should hold back any documents from the Congress.
Are they?
Well, the key that you need to listen for today is I guarantee you the Department of Justice will tout how many documents they're turning over. The question that Trey Gowdy always asks, which is the right one, is what percentage of the documents? Because if you want 100% of the truth on a closed case, then turn over all the documents. But I don't think they're going to do it. They've been asking for these documents under subpoena since August, and they still haven't gotten them.
Is it the deep state?
It is the deep state. I was a little skeptical of what does that mean, but I'm telling you, having lived through it, it is very real.
All right, let's talk about Fusion GPS. They wrote an editorial, which is an overall rebuke to the Republicans, who they say are not being transparent about Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS answered back in today's New York Times. In their editorial, they come out, and you know where they're coming from, when they compare this whole investigation, the Republicans' point of view, to Richard Nixon. They come out and they said they have a whole bunch of information about the president that the Republicans don't want out there. They also say that there's a wide range of Russian involvement with the president that they don't want out there. And they said that they never went out to get the president, that Christopher Steele was so overwhelmed by the information he was able to get, he went directly to the FBI rather than to their client, which was the DNC and Hillary Clinton, and they explained it and unwind it in a lengthy rebuke to all what Republicans have been saying about them. You looked at this as chairman of oversight. What did you take?
Well, when I read this, it's chock full of holes, and it's his political spin at its best, courtesy of the New York Times. Nevertheless, if you
it's not the courtesy of the New York Times. It's their work.
It's their work, but they gave them the space within the paper, which is fine. But here's the reality.